My name is Judith Pfeiffer, and I had polio when I was a child, and I didn't used to use a scooter till about 8 years ago. And I can walk, I do walk, but I can't walk distances.
Judith says anyone who uses a handicapped hang tag legally sees an abuse of the disabled permits. So have Milwaukee's parking checkers.
We have done studies. We have found particular areas where 85% of the vehicles parked on that block face will all have handicap decals.
An example. We don't know the circumstances of these drivers, but on one day on 5th Street south of Michigan, 6 of 6 cars had handicap tags. On Michigan between 4th and 5th Street, 12 of 13 cars had a disabled tag and a blinking meter. The city says if 8 out of 10 parking spaces on one block had tags every day, businesses complain because their customers have trouble finding a parking space, and the city estimates a loss in revenue of $5,600 per year on that one block.
By state law, they can park at a meter all day long without moving, without paying also. And what that basically does is turns business away. It keeps those casual visitors from coming into the downtown area and finding on-street parking because these cars don't move. There are some individuals who have legitimate disabilities that would allow them to park in this situation. But those are also those abusers.
While checkers look for potential abusers, illegal use of the tag is a municipal violation which requires police to investigate and issue tickets.
Well, it's a rather complicated citation to write and to do follow-up on. So we have one specific officer that is dedicated to doing that all the time. All of the officers that are working, especially in the downtown area and some of the outlying areas, are on the alert for that all of the time. There's multiple violations involved. One, it's a $288 fine for the inappropriate use of the handicapped hang tag. So if somebody's parked at a meter that's expired and they had no legal right to have that handicapped hang tag hanging on their windshield or rearview mirror, they are in violation. They would get a $288 ticket. Plus, the expired meter is a separate violation in and of itself. Or we can take the option of towing their vehicle, which we do on occasion. The handicap permits are listed to a specific person, not a specific vehicle. So if, for instance, your mother needed to go to the doctor, you could utilize that if she was in a walker or a wheelchair. You could take her in your car and park in a handicapped space to get her into the doctor. But the problem comes in is people will say, oh, I'm taking my mother to the doctor after work. But if she wasn't physically in the vehicle at the time you parked it, if you dropped her at the front door and went and parked somewhere else, that's a violation. The person who's handicapped has to be in the vehicle at the time it's parked. One of the biggest clues is that when the person is deceased, people are still using it. I mean, obviously that's a case where we just automatically tow the vehicle and we don't really ask for excuses because we know the person that legally owned it isn't in the vehicle. Any of those violations where the age is a key. Some of our biggest clues are when they're, like I said, when they're deceased or when the state reissues a hang tag to somebody that's obviously not working downtown every day. The big problem comes in that we're looking for a turnover of vehicles. We want somebody who's got a half an hour or an hour business downtown to be able to park in a meter instead of in a parking structure. People that are parking all day to go to work should park in a parking structure.
I've been working with a committee trying to identify people using hang tags illegally, but that's hard because not all disabilities are visible. They're looking at people that have obtained the hang tags illegally, either through a doctor, an official source, or by using somebody else's hang tag, a mother's, a mother-in-law's who is deceased, or some of them, I understand, even buy hang tags from people with disabilities who obtain them legally.
They vary from it belonged to a parent, an elderly parent, and I just forgot to take it down because I used to transport them in my vehicle. Deceased individuals and I just continued to use it because of the parking situation. I found it. And I just wanted to use it to get free parking. It's a big problem, and I think the average person would not look at it or see it until they attempt to park. in the downtown area, here in the downtown area, like I say, for business purpose, whatever. And then as they're moving through and they're seeing this, because sometimes we do respond on complaints of citizens here that come down and say, well, I can't obtain a parking place.
Police, checkers, and the disabled agree you can't stop and confront everyone who doesn't appear to qualify for a handicap tag, since some disabilities are not that visible. But they would like everyone to pay attention to the problem and not ignore the obvious abuses.
We don't want to, penalize people who legally have a handicap and it should have that opportunity to park on the street close to their business and everything. It's those that are abusing it. This is an ongoing process for us. Like I said, we've been doing it for 3 years, and we have expanded it to other parts of the city, other business districts in the city. It's just not something that's here in the downtown. It's throughout the city of Milwaukee.
And one of the things I really want to encourage is anybody that knows somebody that's using one illegally, call the police department. We can do it totally anonymously. If you give us the number on the hang tag and the car that they're using, particularly the person that's using it, we will catch them.
You're taking away my freedom. You're taking away my ability to function. You're stealing money from the city. It's fraudulent all the way around.
You'll find the Milwaukee Idea home at 7th and Bruce in the Walker's Point neighborhood, an unassuming home with a simple exterior, at the same time a high-tech dwelling and potential prototype for future homes in the city.
It's a very modest little house, but it has a very strong story to tell in all of the different things that it does in terms of inexpensive construction, new energy efficient methods, and of course it's a wonderful house because it was for Independence First. It's entirely accessible by wheelchair bound people.
Construction on the home began early in 2003, but the work began much earlier as UWM looked at new home building designs and technology.
5 years ago, I took 5 of my best students, locked them in a room, and I said, don't come out until you give me a compelling small home. A small home being half the size of a typical 2,500 square foot home. So this is a 1,200 square foot space. And so they came out with a plan for a home that is fundamentally the same footprint and floor plans you see here with some small modifications, all part of the university's Milwaukee Idea initiative, which is to get out in the community and do stuff.
Independence First, an advocacy group for people with disabilities, owns the home and will use it for transitional housing.
They'll have an opportunity to find out types of adaptations that can be used and adapted into their own homes, modifications that can be made, and also give them ideas on how they can live more independently in their own homes. A feature that's really important in our field is handles, door handles. It's very difficult for somebody who might have had a stroke or has some type of disability to turn a door knob. So a levered handle is really very, very essential for someone to be able to easily access a building. Another feature of the house here is the light switches. They're all at a very convenient level. They also chose to use the rocker type switches, which are easy to access. This is the lower bedroom, which is accessible to someone who might have a mobility disability. The wall is also removable in that the panels can be taken down and stored, and the room would actually be enlarged to include the foyer area as well, depending on if somebody needed to have extra equipment. The doors are shed-style doors. They're very really great feature because doors sometimes get in the way for people. They open up many times in hallways, which create barriers, and sometimes they open up into a space, and if it's a small space, it can actually trap somebody who might be using a wheelchair. So these doors are designed with hardware that can be easily opened and closed. This is the bathroom of the Milwaukee Idea home. And there's also a very clever locking feature on this one that can be controlled, again, using a closed fist. The sink or lavatory is designed so that someone can easily roll underneath it. The shower is large enough for a person who is being bathed and also an attendant that might be able to help them. This is the kitchen of the Milwaukee Idea home, and it was designed in a very small space, but also in a very efficient space, so that someone who might use a wheelchair would be able to access all areas and all appliances here. This home is designed so that people can easily move around and be able to have that independence, which so many of us take for granted.
On the second level, which is designed to accommodate a wheelchair lift, there's a bedroom for a caregiver or family member, bathroom, and sitting area. There are many other features. You can call 291-7520 for more information. Among the partners in this home, the City of Milwaukee and Wells Fargo, and We Energies, which has installed a demonstration fuel cell power source.
What we have here is a 5 kilowatt proton exchange membrane fuel cell. It's used to both power the house and heat the house. It runs on natural gas, and it converts that natural gas to a hydrogen-rich gas, and then it converts that hydrogen into electricity and heat. We've got plenty of metering, lots of instrumentation, but it'll be a few months, maybe a year or two, till we know exactly what it's doing. But we're expecting 80 or 90% efficiency out of the unit when it's heating the home and powering it.
The Metropolitan Milwaukee Sewerage District is also involved. There are no gutters on the house. Instead, ground-level gutters direct stormwater away from the home, where it's used for heat transfer coils in the ground and to irrigate the yard. Rain gardens are designed to capture rainwater and reduce runoff. A porous walkway provides a further reduction in stormwater runoff. Planners say this type of home should cost about $100,000. UWM architecture students are now working on a multi-family dwelling planned for the River West neighborhood.
We have a lot of work to do in reweaving the urban fabric of the city with our houses. Many are in need of repair, many of them are in need of replacement. Many sites are perfect for redevelopment for housing, to provide places for people to live. And so the more that we can provide by the way of good technology to create that housing stock fast, effectively, and inexpensively, the better we're doing by the city.
This neighborhood takes its name from Washington Park, planned by the same landscape architect who designed Central Park in New York. Its rolling hills and scenic lagoon have been here since 1892. It was the first home of the Milwaukee Zoo, which by 1907 was among the largest in the country. The park has featured a horse racing track, and summer concerts continue at the historic Blatz Bandshell, built in 1938. The Washington Park neighborhood runs from North Avenue to Vliet Street, from 35th Street to the Highway 41 Stadium Freeway. The park played a decisive role in development of the neighborhood. It still does.
My wife and I were planning to move to Milwaukee 35 years ago, and we were looking for a racially and socially diverse neighborhood to raise our children in.
They found it in Washington Park, and for 25 years have lived in perhaps the oldest home here, a Cream City brick old-style home built around 1856.
Ludwig von Mumbach was one of the 48ers from the many Germans who came here, as well as Irish. A lot of people came in 1848, of course. And he built the house and owned part of this land, evidently. I guess it was called von Mumbach's Woods. At one point, I don't know how much he owned. And then it became West Park and then Washington Park. It's really a main draw. It's a beautiful park, not as well maintained as we would like.
Chose this side of town to raise my family on, so at least the last 25 years we've been in the close proximity to this park. What's nice about the neighborhood is that you can get anywhere in town in less than 15 minutes from here, because it's so centrally located. What I've always loved about the neighborhood was the housing stock, though. It's such diverse products.
Diverse but often troubled housing. 80% of the residents are renters in a neighborhood filled with many duplexes. Neighbors say time and a lack of investment are among the problems that have taken a toll on the housing stock, much of which is around 100 years old.
Well, it's a neighborhood in transition, and we do have problems, but things are looking up. It's an area where we've had a lot of misuse of buildings by slum landlords. But for the first time in many years, we do have new construction going on of homes. We have a number of developers working here. For the most part, they'll increase the number of homeowners who live here. A lot of the properties in this neighborhood are probably close to 100 years old, 90 to 100 years old. So the neighborhood goes back that far. And a lot of them, the ones that have been maintained, are still very good. The housing stock that remains is for the most part good. But there certainly are a lot of properties that need some loving care and somebody who would fix it up again.
The Lisbon Avenue Neighborhood Development Corporation serves as the neighborhood association. The community-based group, housed in Washington Park, says poverty is a problem affecting many of its residents.
And we here at LAND addresses poverty through a three-prong approach. We do community development, community organizing, and economic development. You know, I think that bringing business into the area, it does job creation, it adds values to home property. I think it just enriches our community, especially the right type of businesses.
LAND also sponsors a number of youth programs. It coordinates committees of residents who work on issues involving housing, safety, and sanitation. From the beginning, the park has been a boundary, separating distinct neighborhoods and income levels. But a group called Washington Park Partners has residents from all sides of the park working together on such things as block clubs.
How I see block clubs is really a piece of preventive measures. If we can get neighbors to come out, talk to each other, you know, talk about the issues, talk about problems before they become a problem, you know, it just enriches our community. Residents need to be heard. They still need to be helped. And they need to be given some assurance that someone's going to follow through and stay on top of it. That's when we come along.
Another effort is a free newsletter, which informs residents of new business, economic development, crime, problem properties, and more.
It's very important to be able to get, for people to be able to pick that up without having, and maybe you can't come out to a meeting, or maybe you don't have time, maybe you're ill, or maybe you're taking care of a parent or a child or something. For some reason you can't make it to the meeting, so you feel disconnected. Well, this connects you right back to the neighborhood and to what's going on.
Neighborhood attractions include the Washington Park Senior Center and the new Washington Park Library. There's a new school going up at 35th and Cherry. Commercial streets include Lisbon Avenue, once a plank road. Kerr's Chocolates has been an institution here since 1930, but a lack of investment has taken its toll on some commercial strips. The Hmong American Friendship Museum on Valete Street is an indication of the neighborhood's diversity. As in other neighborhoods, churches play an important role. New Covenant is building more housing at 35th and North. Residents say things are looking up, and they have a message for those who live here and throughout the city.
There's little remnants left of, some crime elements and things like that. Of course, we're going to always have crime, no matter where we live at. But for a while, it was prominent, very prominent in this neighborhood. And that's quickly moving away. And I would tell people that have lived here for so many years, that fought all of those fights to make the neighborhood safe, that congratulations, it's working now. And you're starting to see some good things happen around here. And you're going to reap some of the benefits of your hard labor.
I think that I would like for them to know that it's a neighborhood on the change. You know, it is a neighborhood that has had struggles and challenges, but that there are good folks here. You know, would like to invite them to come down and take a look. Would like to invite them to come through the park and see that not all the things that they've heard are always things that are true.
Challenges in the neighborhood is going to be to continue the momentum that we have going now. for people to continue with the willingness to work together. And we want to make sure that this transition that we work toward in this neighborhood is a smooth transition, and that it's a transition that everyone that lived, worked, played, and prayed here before to make it like that has an opportunity to enjoy and reap some of those benefits. At the same time, we want to bring in some balance so that we have a nice, safe, healthy neighborhood.